What's up, everyone?
Welcome to the other side of the ball, where I hate technology.
We can hear you.
I still hate technology. Nonetheless, welcome. As you can see, it is a five-man roundtable here on episode 111 of the other side of the ball. Well, yes, there is Baby Hammond, as he is not even paying attention at all to Daddy. But nonetheless, double A, Mr. Duncan, Corey Hammond, Christopher, and joining us from his dorm, the statistician emeritus of the ASNFL, Mr. Cole Gardella. Welcome, Cole.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And hello, Baby Hammond.
Interesting take.
Good evening, Travis. Yes, we do indeed have a full house today. So, last week we talked about yes, indeed. So last week we talked about the award winners for 2024 in our league, and today, a subject near and dear to Chris's heart, we will be talking about the top 7 wide receivers of 2024. But before we get into that, gentlemen, how are we on this November evening, as we are 15 days away from giving thanks and stuffing our faces with beans, greens, tomatoes, and lamb and turkey and all that good stuff?
I am doing great. It was a long proverbial day, but you know what? I'm glad to be sitting here with my guys talking about local football. Corey, Derek.
Yeah, I'm just afraid that we're going to get a double dose of Corey Hammond again. Is there an echo, guys?
I don't hear an echo.
Yeah, I think the echo's coming from Dub's side because it's worse when he's the one talking.
Yeah, so
he muted and it's gone.
Well, he's back.
Man, he unmuted.
No.
Anyway, so things have been good for me. Had a great trip down to see the family. Went down to Louisiana and hung out with them for 4 days on the water. They all got to play with the baby. I got to reconnect with my wife's sisters and their husbands, and it's a really good time. Need to decompress like that every now and then. It's nothing like a family trip when everybody likes each other. That doesn't happen too frequently, so it's a lot of fun.
Yep, and I'm just keeping myself busy. I have nothing to do, never a responsibility, so I'm just bored looking for things. And it's just, once again, as always, it's great to be back with you guys. Now, I think, Cole, unless you have something to add, or Chris, on your day-to-day lives?
Not much for me.
I get to do a little drinking tonight because I don't have to fly out anywhere tomorrow.
There you go.
Well, let me speak on behalf of Cole real quick. Statistician extraordinaire will be graduating college in a month or so, and the best statistician available on the planet is looking for work in that field. So if you are a fan of the other side of the ball and you would love to have a fantastic statistician on your team, Cole is the man to talk to. Cole Gardella. Look him up. What's your handle on Insta, Cole?
It's just first dot last name, Cole.Gardella.
And don't pigeonhole him. He's got more skills than that. He was just a utility knife in the booth. And, a lot of us can't do math. So Cole solved a lot of problems this year. He's also alternate universe Savage Corey Hammond, and I'm sure he's going to roast me at some point tonight. And good thing we're not talking quarterbacks, but we are talking a position near and dear to my heart. I know Chris is very fond of our wide receivers in our league. Derek, you love all the guys in our league, but I know for a fact the moneymakers are the guys out there on the one-on-one coverage in our 7v7 league. And Dub, I know that you're, as a Charlie Batch replica, missing Herman Moore and the Lions of yore, because tonight's topic is wide receivers. And I think let's start the general conversation before we jump right into the top seven list. because that's one of maybe the most packed positions in the A7FL, and I don't think it's close, because not only does this sport put those guys in a position where they can really shine, there's no shortage of just raw talent, even amongst the guys that won't make our list. And it's good to upfront kind of say that this top 7 list will be based a lot on stats. So if you have an issue, let us know in the comments and blame the guy up there. Hey, he's right over there, right? He's the statistician guy. No, I'm just going to throw him under the bus early. Right, Cole?
You're just throwing his ass under the bus right now, aren't you?
No, I'm prodding him because he's going to probably get me later. It's going to be a way better burn, and it'll be make for good entertainment. But there are so many talented guys in our league that when we make this list, we have to kind of focus more on the statistical output and the actual measurables. Because if we were listing some of the top talent guys on this list, we can make a list of 50 guys that are that guy if you give him the opportunities. So I think it's a good place to open up. Who do you guys just at, not maybe in regards to this list, but as just far as wide receivers go, who are those guys that you at least want to talk to before we kind of granularly, is that how you say it? Yeah, he's teaching me. Granularly break it down, just basic, just who are your guys' favorites in the league, just to get the topic rolling.
I know we don't have him on the list, and I know why. And I'd like to preface it by saying the reason why we don't have him on the list is just because he was not there all season, and that's David Clark, because I think he deserves to be on this list, but I understand why he's not, and the hesitation for him to not be on this list. So I know that what you said, Corey, was just we're looking at stats from 2024. And he was not there all season. So I get it, but he would definitely be in my top 5. Or if you want to put it there, top 7, if we were looking at this last year, for sure.
Well, and to be clear, he might not be on this list, but his importance is easy to see. In the championship game, the last time the Insomniacs were on the field, the guy who scored the go-ahead touchdown at the time was the guy you're mentioning, David Clark. And I think, look, when you talk about just the kind of prototype wide receiver, what's up, Knox?
What's up, my guy?
Are you gonna have a baby with that picture? Like, what's going on there? Anyway,
I don't think that's a stomach that she's kissing.
The hands I drawn like somebody was kissing some ass.
Right? Here, we'll show you that again. That is not a stomach.
Fair. Okay.
I mean, it could be.
Well, listen, if they did a little bit, if they're going to be as detailed on the shape of what we're grabbing, if we're going to be as detailed on the shape of what we're grabbing, they could have put in like the kind of like the contour on the spine, so at least we had a clue. Because that was I'm no hate there, all for it. It was bent into a weird shape on the grip there, so my bad, Knox. I would agree in general there. But I think the guy we're looking at is the Mitchell guy, who was nominated for every major award, including GM of the year, apparently.
And look, tonight we're going to talk about him a little bit, just because likely won't be mentioned or actually win any of the top 7 in anything. But the guy was a utility player, got nominated for everything underneath the sun, and he is actually a pretty damn good wide receiver. Just in that Midwest division, doesn't get a lot of play. So we're gonna give him some screen time tonight and a little TV time, so people learn about James Mitchell, number 5 of the Indianapolis Octane.
Well, and I think he's the wide receiver at the edge of the screen. I saw him make a lot of plays. I think getting back to Chris's guy, David Clark, that's one of the best guys. I have a lot of guys that I have like actual experience throwing to that I could mention. It's funny. Some of the guys that are in the elder statesman type years, especially in the Northeast, they come in, their stats are crazy. They'll have like one catch, 26 yards, a touchdown, for 3 weeks because they touched the field like 4 times. But there's no shortage of talent in the Northeast, especially that I see up close. And Knox, listen, emojis or not, spell it the right way, spell it the wrong way. We all agree. Even if you say you don't. Even if you say you don't, you really do. But I love to mention guys that, you could even look up on some of the old YouTube footage, like Smokey, Pat Coburn. Little known fact, his brother is actually a record-setting player at West Virginia, and Pat Coburn himself played in Canada. But when you talk about personal guys like that, I think are just up there. If there's a highlight tape of me, it's probably because he earned the wide open passes that I threw to him, and then I just benefited from having such a great receiver in Pat Coburn. And then I think a guy that I wish was mentioned a little bit more was the rookie from the Renegades who was a target of mine. He goes by a lot of names because he was switching jerseys at times. They called him Jimmy Flott. They've called him different names that aren't his, but I know him as Jimmy Mockery, which is his actual name, and he was the smaller, kind of Edelman type wide receiver, and read into that the way you want to, and then watch the film, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And Cole, I think you put up his stats. He had like 20 catches for around like 200 yards, and I thought it was more than that, but he did miss some time for injury. So those are two of my guys from the Northeast, just to be biased, because I'm known for that on this show especially. So why shy away from it? Cole, who stood out for you at in whatever way you want to quantify it at the wide receiver position this year?
I mean, there is a lot of guys that really stand out for me. One that comes to mind immediately is one that we didn't get to see a lot because of some really unfortunate circumstances, and that's Rico Brown of the Tampa Nightcrawlers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember the Eastern Conference Final from 2 seasons ago, where he had, I think, over 300 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns against what most people thought was one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the league.
Yeah, that was insane. I remember that very well.
He's a walking highlight machine. Unfortunately, I only got to see him like twice this year because of the way that the schedule worked out. But Rico Brown is unworldly. Like the way he can track the ball in the air, because Bagway, because of the way that the Nightcrawlers play, he rolls out a lot and has to throw on the run a lot. So that's not always going to be a perfect spiral. Rico can track that every time.
Yeah.
And, say what you want about his stats in the 2023 championship, which are not that great, but I think he's definitely someone that if we got to see a little bit more, I think would have made the top 7, but unfortunately, just because we didn't, he's not there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. He kind of gets overshadowed at times because of the amount of times I think Bagway and Logo play quarterback. So we get those guys in frame, their faces. You get to know the quarterbacks of teams better because they're the main character a lot of times on passing offenses. So the fact that Mark Bagway and Logo Davis for the Nightcrawlers, they're the main character of the story. But especially in that game against the Watchmen, even though he gets less screen time, Rico Brown was surely the anime protagonist of that game. Now,
and that
Derek,
be, but I still think that when you break that film down and when you start to look at what they were able to do. Now, granted, we're just talking about Davik, and that was one that I brought up. But I'm also got to bring up Logo because, I mean, you talk about a guy that is impressive at the wide receiver position. And the thing about it is, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you were ever to do a true all-star game and you were able, and hear me out on this, you were able to say, okay, let's have some fun with it. Let's play best on best. Let's give a team. Now, this is going to be fun. Logo, Davik, and Darren Palmer. All I could say is good luck to whoever they're playing. I don't care who is the all-star guys on defense. They're going to have their hands full with those 3. So, and you could throw Worthy in there, and it's going to make for a very, very interesting all-star game. But for me, I've got to say, give the due where it is due, and Logo is definitely one of those guys where, again, we have to say it kind of in the same breath with Davik. He wasn't there all season. We know that with the situations. But at the same time, if we were talking about this for last year, he would definitely be he'd be in my top 7 for sure.
Yeah, and with Logo, I mean, and you kind of, I don't know if the listeners, watchers, they're listeners if they just put it on in the background, and that's fair. We'll take it. I don't know if they've noticed a pattern, but there's a lot of guys that it's like, why didn't they make this list? I'm going to do the tease, Dub. Tune in next week because we're going to do the ATHs, the athletes, the guys that we can't categorize because they're just so impactful on the field and in the game. I think there's some places for guys like Bagway, who we didn't mention the quarterbacks, guys like Logo, who might not be mentioned. Maybe he is. Maybe it's a late ad, Chris. We got to keep everybody.
Oh, we got to keep everybody in mind.
Engaged.
Right?
But for tonight, maybe we don't have a Logo Davis. Maybe even not a Munchie because he's one of those guys that plays a lot of positions. So stay tuned. Next week, we're going to be able to find places for guys like that. And Logo Davis, whatever position he lines up in, he's a candidate for a top 7, including quarterback and linebacker, probably defensive end. We don't know kicker, but I've seen him swing a golf club, and it's pretty amazing. Dub, who's your wide receiver honorable mention?
Golf with me yet?
Honestly, I have not seen him swing a golf club. I just think that that's a cute little way to say that he's athletic and whatever he does, he'll be great at. And so that is anecdotal, and that is me doing show. And you can call me a liar, but if you lie, you become the president. So I'm just working on my game. Dub, who do you think is a wide receiver that is getting that air quotes honorable mention? Because, let's just go behind the curtain. That's what this little prep segment is about.
Okay, first off, do I have an echo?
You are good to go. The echo's from us. So if you hear me talking and it's just one person, you're probably fine. Now, if I hear myself inside my own head, that's probably just a personal problem.
No, because I'm just tired of really dealing with technology tonight, as you can see with the look on my face. But to answer your question,
you beat it up. You punched it in its face, and now it's behaving.
All right. Well,
wow, that was a weird reference, but I meant in a technological sense. But go ahead.
Well, for me, I got 2 guys. Even though one of them you can possibly put in that athlete category, but if we're just strictly talking about wide receiver,
yes.
For me, it's Agenine A.G. Cunningham from the Pit Bosses. Definitely one that really stood out for the Pit Bosses this past season. Now, just imagine for most of the year they did not have their starting quarterback, who was Iriarte, who hurt himself during the fall brawl playing for the Alienators. So just imagine what more numbers he could have put up if he did have his quarterback, because keep in mind, Iquan Corsi for most of the year was the Pit Bosses quarterback, and he still did some great things. But, of course, Iriarte, a much more better pocket passer and a much more better thrower of the football than Iquan. But
yeah, I didn't know he was actually hurt in the fall. I was looking for him. I was excited to see what he could do.
I think he got. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he get hurt like one of the last games of the when he was playing for the Alienators?
I want to say it was
against the Insomniacs, right?
I think it was the playoff game against the Insomniacs where he did indeed hurt his ACL and he was lost for the spring season.
ACL. Well, that's actually good for the Pit Bosses coming back. That if they get him back, correct, that'll take care of a lot of issues. And having an Iquan Corsi. Not to go on too much of a tangent, we'll call it the weave. Yeah, I wanted to let that just sit for a second. Iquan Corsi can come in and still be that guy at times, but if they have the traditional pocket passer, a lot of teams do that double thing. I hate it. It's well documented, but the Pit Bosses. Stay tuned. So you go your first guy. Who's your second? Because why not throw another one in?
My second guy, like I said, you really could put him in the athlete category because he does so much more, but it seems like whenever you need a big catch that's not named David Clark or Daniel Lyons or Munchie, Smooth Brown of the Insomniacs always seems to come up with a big catch in a big situation. I mean, we go back We go back to the title game 2 years ago. That touchdown before halftime to get them within 5 because they were down at that
Yeah.
time helped set the course for what happened in the second half. And then again, just when you need a key first down, you need a key possession to keep the ball. He always seems to be in the vicinity when you need him to be there.
Didn't he have a one-handed like highlight interception as well
Yes.
this year?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so it's like
He's had quite a few. Yes.
yeah, he's one of those
Yes.
guys. You plug and play, and that kind of goes with my rant when we were talking about the season awards. Guys on the Insomniacs that don't get the publicity and the attention, if they went to another team in the right situation, right? Like I get that guys want to play with their friends and they want to be comfortable with the organization too. You don't just keep switching teams every year like some kind of asshole from Jersey named Corey Hammond. I don't know, but if some of those other guys found places on other teams, the passing game specifically, if we could find a spot for Darnell Richardson that they could give him just enough time, if we could find some wide receivers for Darnell Richardson to give, if Iriarte is healthy, right? If somehow that Mickle brother that's always talking about how great of a quarterback he is, he somehow actually becomes pretty decent at throwing the ball. And if the Force get the improvement from Fox, that could be the Pac-12 type of air it out, love to watch type of division that Vegas could be,
Old school
especially also what?
Old school AFL with Namath and LaMonica and Jack Kemp back.
Yeah,
back to the
I
60s.
think the demographic that we hit though thinks that you're talking about a made up thing now.
No,
Like
it's
LaMonica,
not.
like that's no, I know that.
Okay.
I know that.
Hey, Corey, you're almost old enough to be my starting quarterback on my 50 and over team.
Oh,
No,
baby. Oh,
40 and over
baby.
almost, not 50. And when I have a
You're
bald
almost old,
head,
buddy.
you could just immediately age me up to 50 because I'm going bald at that point. I'm still holding on.
As
It's
my
still
wife
pretty
says, I
decent.
could start playing again as soon as they start a 50 and over team, or excuse me, 50 and over league.
She gave you the blessing.
No, you know
Yeah,
what
she
the
did.
joke is? You know what the joke is? I'm almost next season. I will be too old for 37U. That's what they've been.
Seriously?
Yeah, no, listen. That's what they've been like jokingly calling like semi-pro, and then they throw our clip in there that have been going viral on Facebook and Insta and Snap and Face and TikToks and shit, right? That like derogatory designation of semi-pro football is 37U. I will be too old for 37U. So I don't know if they're going to just adjust the whole thing. Maybe that's why Rock Briscoe had to hang it up. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do it 40 and over. How long before you're 40?
Yeah, we could do 37-0, 37 over 37 instead of 37.
How old are you now?
I'm 37 currently.
Oh shit! So yeah, I can't wait 13 years, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not
I
almost.
can't wait 13 years. If I wait 13 years, I'll be 66, and that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, if 13 years is almost to you,
That's not gonna happen. So we're gonna have to do
the baby on my
we gotta-
lap
we
can
gotta do
almost
37
drive.
and over. 37 and over. We'll do that.
Listen, we'll just do a like they do the has-been game at the All-Star weekend. We'll just do a situation there. We'll have Ryan DePaul out there running around, and he can't wait, right? He's Bart
How old
Scott
is
right
Ryan
now.
now?
It doesn't matter. He's an alumni player that just wants to play a game.
I'm good with that. I'll come out there and play.
You guys want a quick
come out and
you
play.
want a quick Ryan DePaul story time?
Yeah.
If you go back, I think it was 2018. The Thrashers were the team in the Northeast because there wasn't a Vegas, I think, at that point. But the Thrashers were 0-for on the season. Something I know a lot about. But they were 0-for on the season. So and Ryan said that he would play quarterback their last game of the season. And he's not bad. Ryan DePaul, the commissioner of our league, is actually capable of doing the job. It's just, guess what? Theme here, maybe I've mentioned it. When you don't have time to throw, it's very difficult to effectively run a passing offense, period, right?
Correct.
And if you don't have time to throw, you probably can't run the ball either because that requires offensive line. Anyway, Ryan was in there commissioner of the league, like literally as an announcer, my boss. And it's me and LJ Smith, who's known for roasting people. And he didn't want to touch it. And after the second interception, when he threw the third, I had to call it out. And then he threw another one. And then he threw another one. But anyway, that was a bad day. Ryan DePaul is itching to get back out there.
I'm interested. I'm itching to get back out there myself, but
I don't think it's the want to from us. I think it's the want to watch from our listeners and fans. It might get ugly. It might get ugly for some of us. It's ugly for me, and I'm active.
I was actually impressed to see Will Franklin spin the football out there in Bullhead.
You didn't know about that
in the flag tournament. I'm like,
didn't know about that.
Will can sling it.
But see, that was the weekend that the wife decided to hide my cleats because I told her that I was going to go out there.
Yeah, I wasn't doing flag.
Because Will was like, "Hey, Chris, I need a wide receiver." I said, "Dude, I got you." And she was like, "No, you don't."
I'm not going to say who, but people hit me up. They were like, "Hey, you want to just mess around?" I was like, "No, I already went to do the in Vegas playing football on that field thing." And by the way, I played A7, but OTT they have O-line issues at times. We'll say,
dude,
they don't come with their.
They don't care.
Daniel Packer should not be protecting Corey Hammond. That's all I'll say. Daniel Packer should not be protecting Corey Hammond. That poor guy. I wanted to throw him out there at wide receiver. They had him in at center. So anyway,
I could play that too.
That segues us perfectly, guys. And there could not ever be a better segue than that rambling, old-timey story from us old people. Cole, you got to step in, man. You're the closest to age in most.
Cole's the youngest man in the house and just quiet as a church mouse.
You're letting us ramble like a Republican, de facto soon-to-be guy. We're going to do the top 7 wide receivers in the 2024 A7NFL season according to the other side of the ball. Brought to you by Cole. Stats by Cole. It's a fragrance. Number 7, I think, and Cole, let me kind of like meander until we go to you for the stats. But if you could pull up the stats that you have on a lot of these guys. Unfortunately, we don't have all the stats from all of the divisions, and there might be guys from other divisions. But this first one we definitely do. When you talk about big play guys that make the highlights for the A7FL, one guy's memorable because we happen to, as a booth, do a song every time, and we do not own the rights to this music, but I'm just going to preface number 7. Boop, 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 boop. And for everybody under the age of, I guess, mine and Dub and Chris was probably even too old for this. That song is "This Is Why I'm Hot."
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
No, for this to be your music. This was a one-hit wonder. Mm-hmm. This Is Why I'm Hot is by Mims. And number 7 is the U wide receiver, Dakari Mims. Now, Cole's going to break down the stats. He was a little bit boom or bust, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that for a lot of his season, Quattro Huffin was not his quarterback, giving him opportunities. But when you look at a roster full of guys, including a guy that I mentioned in Pat Coburn, there's a lot of guys on that team, by the way. Dakari Mims is one of the premier guys that we wish we saw more of. But when he gets the ball in his hands, as you'll see according to the stats from Cole in a second, he's one of those guys that consistently makes enormous plays for the Patterson U. Cole, what were his stats on the season that are recorded at least?
So we have 6 recorded games from Mims in 2024. And in those 6 games, he had 12 catches, 427 yards, which is an average of 35.6 yards a catch, and 6 touchdowns, which means half the time he caught the ball, it was going for 6.
Yes, so 12 catches, 400 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Well, and that's only in 6 recorded games. The U, to be clear, played 10 games, and in other games, I'm sure he recorded stats, especially in the Watchmen game where they put up a lot of points. But again, missing Huff, he's that boom or bust guy. And I think there's other guys on this list that kind of fit that mold. but there's no way that you could take away the effectiveness of a guy in Dakari Mims. Panel, thoughts on number 777?
Honestly, I really don't have a ton of thoughts on him. I think that
Well, how about this?
I-
Is there a
and I'll-
guy? Is there a guy based on
No,
those
hold on,
numbers? 12.
Let me
Oh, go
finish.
ahead. My
Let me
bad.
finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. I don't have a ton of thoughts on him because I have not sat down and truly watched all of his games to see what kind of wide receiver he is. And yes, I do have takes on wide receivers. I coach wide receivers. I was a wide receiver. So I can sit here and honestly say most of the guys on the list that we're going to talk about tonight, I have sat down and watched. I have a take on most of them. With him, he is the exception because I've not had a chance to sit down and watch his games and really have a solid take on him. I'm not going to mix any kind of words with the shit.
Yeah.
I'm just being upfront and honest. And
Well, according
the thing
to
about it is
Cole,
when I saw
he'll
when I saw you put him on the list, I was like, oh, I need to watch this kid because if he caught your eye, there's something there.
Well, and I don't know if it's going to be a double Corey Hammond, maybe. But if you only had 12 opportunities last year, according to Cole, so if you missed them, totally understandable. Now, he's got a decent history in the league of just kind of making the big play when the U needs them, and to say that on their roster,
That's saying something.
is in of itself. But how about this? Because a seven spot is negotiable. We can negotiate a little bit here. We could come to the middle, left meets right and meet in the middle and somehow get something done. Maybe that's a message to people who just got elected from all over the country in all types of positions. You sense a theme here with some of my commentary. So let's do that compromise. Is there a different guy just based on feel? Because hey, we can move on it. That you think that could have slid into this spot?
Well, I think most of the guys that I would even say or bring up are guys that we already talked about that probably wouldn't make this list because of what we have said as far as the way it goes and what they were able to bring in the 2024 season. Most of the guys that I would bring up would probably be guys that I would talk about that have done stuff last year rather than this past season. Now, one of the guys that I probably wouldn't have a problem with talking about, I sent over to you, and I agreed with what you said, and that's Savion.
Yeah.
He's a big play kid. When even we talk about him on the 3-on-1, and he's one of the best. We know that. But the fact of the matter is, this is also a kid that didn't really have a quarterback to speak of, and made some really big plays in our league within this past season that really don't get the shine that they deserve. And it's a situation where I could easily see what you're saying with this gentleman being able to come back and make big plays. I could also tell you about big play after big play that Savion made. So it's one of those situations where I can't argue this with you. I can understand being able to put other players in the position, but I can't argue this pick with you.
And honestly, mentioning Savion, I wouldn't even doubt that if you looked at the numbers and we actually got the good numbers, and this goes to the teams and the people that are sitting there on the sideline.
By any chance?
No, he's got a Northeast game every single, he's got to be in game, making stats happen in game. But I'm talking to all the teams out there that want their stats and want to be talked about. You got hands, and the numeral system we use in America. You could take stats too, and then maybe we could put you on these lists. Sorry, I just had to give the guys a little sidebar. But I wouldn't be surprised if you broke down 6 games of Savion Cunningham, and you got similar numbers, because he's that type of big play guy, and his ability in the open field once he has the ball of turning it into a 3-on-1 makes some of those numbers even more cartoonish. Dub,
Very much so. And I mean, he's got the speed to run away from you.
Well, and the ability to accelerate too. It's not just top end speed. He's running that 0 to 60 in less than the chances.
Speed, though. It's also his ability to jump out of the gym. I mean, I've seen him. Savion's not a tall kid by any stretch.
No, he's not.
and I've seen him jump over people to make catches in the end zone. I've seen him jump over people on badly thrown passes and make the catch. He is
and then for me, he was dropping it. God damn it! No, I'm just joking.
Right, right. I think you guys just
remember
need
that day. No, I underthrew him a bunch of times because he's that fast. But when I was playing with him, I felt like, yo, bro, there was one interception. I just saw him, and we ran like a waggle concept where I rolled out, and he was the crossing route. And I knew he was covered, but I was like, I want to see. Now, it ended up being an interception.
I know what interception you're talking about. If you would have put that up, he would have went up and got it.
Yeah, I threw it normal, and then if I threw it up more, I threw it like to where he was going, and then it easily got intercepted because somebody came underneath.
No, but if you would have put that up in the air, I guarantee you he would have went up and got it. I would say that
the one that killed me,
dollars to cents at his height, Savion can dunk.
Oh yeah, he's like, not being weird. He's made of like vibranium or some different type of material makes up that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He is
he's like a human spring.
The fact
like
that he's so pliable is crazy.
Listen, I wouldn't mind putting a Savion Cunningham on the wide receiver list too. I think based on just the stats we were given, I thought it was Dakari Mims. Listen, Dub, convince me. Who's number 7 on this list? Guy from the Northeast in Patterson U? Or local hero?
I mean, you got him. We're going with Mims, and like I said, I really want to watch some tape on him. I want to see what he's all about. I haven't had a chance to watch him as much as I should have, and it is what it is. So we'll move on.
Why do people? No disrespect. Stop calling yourself that. Just say Jordan Davidson. Somebody's going to call you it on the panel, just not me. Not a bad list based on who your favorites are. Now I'll say this:
vanilla wafer. I'm just saying.
You call him Ritz Cracker.
No,
Quaddy Morgan is a running back.
He doesn't qualify as a Ritz.
They're actually relatively brown.
Nabisco.
Quaddy Morgan, to me, and why he's not going to be mentioned on this list. Quaddy Morgan. First of all, he's not really even the leading wide receiver from that Animals guys. The group of guys, my guy, Jordan Davidson. Quaddy Morgan is going to find himself on a list, not at wide receiver. And I think this is a good way to get this stat in. Statistician Cole Gardella, give us Marlon Anderson's stats that you could find and why he is not on this list specifically.
So
Tony Totap.
We only saw him play twice because we saw him play in the game against the U and then in the game against the Animals in the playoffs. And he only caught 4 passes, but all 4 of them were touchdowns. And they were touchdowns of at least 30 yards each time.
Listen, so he's not Jerome Bettis because they're not 1-yard touchdowns. But yeah, he's the we'll give him the Kia Clutch Performance Award because they're also in big moments when he catches those, by the way. He like chills. It would be better. Now he doesn't, but it would almost be better if he had Hennessy with his with his helmet off because we play without helmets. But he's sitting there on the sideline with a Hennessy and a cigarette, just waiting for the moment, walks in, gets the touchdown. That'll be the lore of Tony Totap.
Hey, we can't say that because we don't drink on the field and we don't smoke on the field.
I prefaced by saying he doesn't do that. But the lore is that if only he's Steve, listen, you don't get an honorable mention. You just are. No, you just are the photographer. You don't get an honorable mention. Now,
he gets an honorable mention because of his time served in the military, bro.
Thank you for your service.
So,
thank you. Yes, that's fine. But he didn't serve his time at wide receiver.
That's all right. He gets an honorable mention anyway because that's my boy.
I will honorably mention that we give KC a lot of shit. Top 7 players that were a bust. No, we're not going to be negative on this show. You know how often we are negative and people love that stuff and say that we're haters.
I am not getting involved.
Steve Ashmore, thank you for clarifying. I did know that, but I wanted to involve you in the show. So I was going to say, now we give Casey Cox a lot of garbage for the multiple times he fell, and it was 3 total. Let's not let Steve off the hook totally because we all
Hey,
saw.
by the
it.
way,
We all
Corey,
know
are
what
we
happened.
racing again sometime or?
No, we're not racing.
Oh, okay.
When I'm 50, we'll race. That'll be the day.
Dude,
So
that's
number 7.
15
Yeah.
years from now, I'll be 66.
Patience.
Get
Yeah,
your
okay,
kicks
dude, I'm
Patience.
closer to
on
death
the-
than I am
I'll
closer to
I'll
racing
I'll,
you.
I'll race you. You'll probably beat me. You'll beat me. Chris, I think you'll beat me in a race. I swear to God, I think you'll beat me in a race. We can
Steve
race
is
though.
saying-
It's just
Steve is saying he only fell once.
that's what I'm saying. I didn't say it fell multiple times, but at least he's honest and you know.
Oh wow. Well,
One A and one B.
I've thrown for
biggest busts.
I threw for more yards against the U last year with an 0-17 than Jordan Davidson has thrown his entire career. He cannot mention himself. He can mention that spelling of Corey Hammond because that's incorrect. Bro,
That
there's a
would be
highlight tape and it's 30 minutes long. Your highlight tape is seconds long, Jordan Davidson. Chill. Google me.
number
Anyway.
6.
Number 6. Now, this is a guy near and dear to your guys' heart as well as both of our hearts. And Cole, get ready with the stats. So, Chris, as
Yeah.
the resident Vegas wide receiver expert,
Mhm.
can you introduce us number 6?
Number 6 would be Mr. Jaden Webb, and for good reason. To me, this is a kid that's up and coming. I think that we're scratching the surface with his capability and what he is able to do. And I want to see as he
That's a good burn.
you watch players and you watch players grow. And this is a young man that I think is just at the surface of what he can be and what he's going to do in the A7. And I think that this is a kid that if you are smart, if Jaden is available for another team, and I'm not saying that he needs to go to any place else. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is players are known to change teams for one reason or another. This is a kid that if you are looking for a wide receiver that is going to take your team to the next level, I would jump all over. He is raw,
I'll say this.
very talented.
And anybody watching from the Northeast will laugh. If Jaden Webb played in driving distance to Trenton, Kenny Stansbury would have already called his ass.
Oh, wow.
Based on
All
what
right.
you're saying, don't start it out there. Let these guys rock a little bit. At least let some of the bottom guys on the top teams tier in to create that parity. But yeah, Kenny, we know what the fuck you're doing.
Webb
this
is
time of
Webb
year.
is special, man. He's a kid that I think he's shown it in the 3-on-1. He's shown it as a wide receiver. He's shown it as a corner. You know, the kid is an athlete, all around athlete, and I think that he is one of those players that is going to help your team no matter where you put him in at. But I think that right now, the spot that if I'm starting a team and I need a player, he's playing at wide receiver for me. I have a weapon that I can utilize in different means to get the ball in his hands, and he is just a playmaker. Period.
Now, Cole, go to his stats. I think honestly, I think when I look back at this list, kind of like, you know, with fresh eyes almost, might even be low on this list, but that just shows how many great wide receivers we have. Once we got to this level, it's just kind of like all like 1A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, H, I, J. But Cole, give us a little bit of a statistical analysis on the force playmaker for
So,
Fox
all right. So
and Dem Forces.
on the season, he had in 6 recorded games, he had 13 catches, 237 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also, I know this is specifically a wide receiver list, he also had 3 rushing touchdowns and 163 rushing yards, which, according to this, it looks like he had 6 carries and 163 receiving yards. That's a crazy average. And then he also had 9 returns for 413 yards and 3 touchdowns. And while I have the mic, you know, take it away from Corey as much as we can, really. Jaden Webb was a player that I took stats in the fall brawl last season. And I know the fall is different than the spring, of course, but when I was taking stats, I would have to feed that information to Matt Ryan and Dub, of course. And there's probably, they could search in the message history. There's probably at least 15 instances of me going in all caps, Jaden Webb, holy shit. because he was just making play after play, and he's got a fan in me. He instantly became one of my favorite players out of Vegas. Not even just he played on the Alienators, because I remember the playoff game. I'm like, oh, the Insomniacs are playing like the Alienators. It's going to be some like blowout. It's going to get mercied, and then all of a sudden, Jaden Webb just starts doing everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. He's playing corner. He's returning the ball. I think he had like 4 touchdowns in that game with like 200 something receiving yards. You put the ball in his hands, and he's going to find a way to get into the end zone. He's by far, and I agree with what Chris was saying. If you want to start a team, and you can put him at receiver, corner, maybe he should have been on the athlete list at this point, but he's such a dynamic receiver, and what I think his biggest strength is yard after catch, because he's getting a lot of these touchdowns. But whereas Mims, most of his long touchdowns would be something like a really deep pass down the field. Yeah. He catches it in stride. Webb is catching like a curl route for like 8 yards and it goes 8 yards in the air, and then he runs for 50 yards, which I know Corey loves to see, because Corey would love that on his stats. He didn't get a lot of that on the Renegades or the Omegas, but
no, I got DeAndre Haynes. You just throw the 3-yard pass, and then nobody wants to tackle 6'7", 270, running 4.6, and but I wish
his ass up. Anyway, the yak yard.
You would want to, though. I'm not saying you're not capable, Chris. You would want to tackle a guy like DeAndre. I wouldn't.
Oh yeah, I would love to tackle him. You see, the thing about it is, you and I have always talked about this, and you've always said, and do your thing, man. I'm not knocking you at all. When I played flag and when they play flag nowadays, it's a total different game. And when we played, dude, I'm lighting fuckers up. I didn't care. And right now,
Steve,
I don't care. I don't care about the situation. If it was me and I had a guy that was 6'7", I don't care how heavy he is. I don't care how fast he's running. I'm lighting your ass up.
All right.
Don't care.
Interesting.
Well, I call Jaden Webb Mr. Excitement for a reason, because obviously, as Cole just previously mentioned, not to piggyback on what he said, but I mean, obviously, him on the Alienators, he stood out from game 1 and just simply took the bull by the horns and basically said, here I am, look at me, I can play this game, and it translated into him and what he did for the Force, helping the Force get into the playoffs. And I mean, he is one of the very few that has taken a 3-on-1 return back against the Insomniacs, which hardly ever happens, if any. And I'll ride that cap 2-5. He said that he is Fox's safety blanket. Well, he's a good safety blanket to have, for sure. And
what do the Force, just to stay on the topic of Jaden Daniels for like a half second longer than maybe Jaden Webb. Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
Daniels is pretty good too.
I don't care about that league. I don't know. He's good. I don't want to say Daniels. I misspoke.
You probably had Zelly on your mind, Corey.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, that's right. I just saw Daniel. What's up, Zelly? And let's first of all, Jordan Davidson, 43 years. That joke was fire. Chris was making a good point, and I started cracking up because I was just like, first of all, that's a great burn. And second of all, what do the Force need to add to their offense to be on the same level as a Sick and a Insomniacs? Because I think we could say we like the quarterback.
A little bit. I would say that they need to add another playmaker like Jaden Webb.
Webb needs a complimentary guy. Because
right now he's it.
Now, they don't play in the fall. That's how they got Jaden Webb, it sounds like. He was on the Alienators, which was going to hypothetically be the Pit Bosses. And, that's a whole other conversation for another day.
Let's walk that back for a second. You are correct. They don't play in the fall as the Force.
Right.
However, they bring their players over to play together in another team. So you'll see a good faction of the Force playing on some team in the fall this season.
It's interesting. Zelly and Knox both said like intangible things is what they need. They didn't even say like this person or that position. Zelly said consistency And Knox is saying Fox confidence. That's interesting that it's what do they need, and it's intangible, like not physical things. Like they have it, they just need to do these things. That's an interesting take too. So who do you? So when you're talking about the force in the fall, a lot of those guys played on the Alliance, right?
Some on the Alliance, some on
Just a
the
real quick
Outlaws.
take. Do you guys think that that's a better way for them to kind of recruit by, dividing and conquering? Or would it be a better move for them to be the force and say, hey, play with us, see what it's like? And maybe having that extra, whatever many games under Fox's belt running the force's system with the force's players, maybe that consistency and that confidence could come. No?
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. That's a very good take, but that is an organizational thing that they decide on as an organization.
Yeah, that's what we call a cop-out answer, fucking Dub. Thanks, bud.
And
Give me a take.
That is my take. That's what they decide, but the players that want to do.
Yeah, but no, that's the fact. Should they or shouldn't they? Do you think that what they're doing is better by dividing and conquer, or would it make more sense to be like, hey, we're the force, let's go?
I think it would benefit them if they did play in the fall to build that camaraderie, because obviously you see it with what happened with the Insomniacs. You saw what happened with Sick this past fall brawl,
and you saw what happened with Pac-Man Jones. You lose guys to that shit too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's. Would I do it? Yes, but I'm not a part of that organization. I'm just part of the media. But
Chris, you want to do that, or you want to do 5?
Do you want me to have my take?
I would love to. I felt bad because I pigeonholed Dub into making something happen.
I'll give you my take. My take is simple, and that is, no matter how you face it as a team, you need to run together. If you want to solidify yourself as a team, you want to be, you want to take that next step. The only way for any team to take a next step is to do it together. So when you break yourself up into 2 factions and you've got one over here, one over there, you can look at it as, okay, well, we're doing it as a recruitment piece. I don't care how you want to slice it. If you want to call it a cop-out, call it a cop-out. But the fact of the matter is, if you want to take that next step, you have to parrot some of the teams that are doing it and doing it well. And we've seen the Insomniacs do it. We've seen Cichlid do it. We've seen teams do it and get better. So if you're going to be, if you want to see your team get better and you want to see what's going on, the only way that's going to happen is by being on the field together. So one of the things that I will say is, yes, I think that is, if I wanted to say that, if I want to point to something and say what is keeping the Insomniacs from doing what they could be doing, I think that's part of it. You heard I was a great blocking receiver. Yes, I like to put people on their ass.
And giggles about it.
And laugh about it the whole fucking time. I will be the first one. If you're playing cornerback, I will be the first one to come out and say, we're running a sweep on this side, and there's jack shit you're going to do about it. And I'll either walk your ass through the end zone, or I'm going to put you on your back.
2-5. When are you coming back on the show, bro? Because you are giving some good stuff tonight, bro.
Yeah, come on. And while we wait for Knox, and you'll see what his answer in short order, I'm sure. Number 5. So we go 7. I think I'll even say, I think you almost, let's just say it. Hey, this is the other side of the ball. Savion Cunningham is number 7. Sorry, Dakari Mims. Boop, boop, boop. This is why you're not number 7. It's because Savion Cunningham is so Vegas guy.
Occurred that quick.
So listen, you could convince me on Savion Cunningham. I've seen him in person, so I was like, yeah, actually, you know what? I like it. So Savion Cunningham, number 7. Number 6, Jaden Webb. Number 5 is our first non-Vegas guy on the list. And you'd think he'd be from the Northeast.
But he's not.
He's not. And if he's not from Vegas, he's not from Northeast. Of course, it's Rico Brown, Mark Bagway, or Logo Davis. But again, you'd be wrong.
It's not from Florida either.
Cole Gardella. introduce our number 555.
From the Covington Heist, Amatrice Hall's 5.
Ooh, so Amatrice Hall, Amatrice. I'm gonna stick with Amatrice. I just think it rolls a little quicker. So if I'm butchering his name, tell me in the comments. Say, Corey Hammond, you're terrible at what you do. And you might be right. Listen, I saw him a lot on film.
Hall correctly.
What?
I thought you pronounced Hall correctly.
I did. That's a tough one. Once it gets past 3 letters, it's I'm not sure. So reading is tough. Amatrius, it's definitely not that. Now, I would have asked him in person when he played the U, but all the heists were mean mugging me because of my persona. And when I went down there and was throwing, tighter spirals and better throws than their starting quarterbacks,
Now,
I think they – go ahead, Dub.
no, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but the tremendous catch that Hall made in that playoff game, wasn't that on Dakari Mims?
Was it? It probably
Might have
was,
been
honestly.
Kyle Ward.
Didn't
Nah, yeah. It might have been Kyle Ward and it might have been like Honey Badger.
I'm just saying, Hall mossed somebody in that playoff game. That I do know.
But what I was going to say is that I watched film on him before they got there, and even at times earlier on in his heist career with Hunter Henry, he was making plays. But once they got Maurice Lovett, who was a playmaker at quarterback, and yeah, I could throw a tighter spiral than him, but he actually played a better A7FL game than I did last year. In those moments that we played simultaneously. Amatrice Hall was making plays all year, and then he came to New Jersey, and in a situation in which all of the A7FL world thought that the heist might, they might be scrappy and they might make it a little bit tough at first, but they're going to get blown out. That game was a game at halftime. It felt like it was almost a game all the way through. Now, at a certain point, I think the collective hits from the defensive line of the U just took a toll, specifically on Maurice Lovett, who was still relatively new to our league and playing in Ohio. This was his first test.
The Heights left some plays on the field. They left some plays on the field because they dropped some very catchable.
Oh, especially early on.
Who knows what happens if they make those plays?
And
would have been a different game.
To be clear, this was not the Huffless U either. But Cole, give us the stats on a young Amatrice, a young A Hall.
So, Amatrice Hall in 5 recorded games, 21 catches, 497 yards, which is an average of 23.7 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns, which is a 28.6 touchdown percentage. And I did go back and find out who he mossed. He mossed Neon Dion.
Oh, -1 Neon.
-1.
Wow.
I mean, listen, I've seen that man. I've seen that man get AJ Green to be talking about Haynes. Okay. That's the same defensive player. Hey, look at him, Haynes. You guys know what I'm talking about. You guys are hip. You're Gen whatever letter, right?
That was a great catch, though. Oh my goodness.
And he's again like a Savion guy. He's not the tallest.
No.
Listen, if you were in a pickup game and you never saw any of these guys play football before, you'd pick David Clark before Amatrice Hall. And you might be right at the end of the day. But listen, him, Ashanti Worthy, Savion Cunningham, even to some extent, some of the guys later on in our list, maybe 2 spots up. It's more about want to, especially when it's A7FL, 7 guys on the field. You're probably going to get a one-on-one matchup. Quarterbacks that put the ball up there and trust these guys, a lot of times with the guys on this list, they're rewarded big. Expert wide receiver, extraordinaire, and guy who would tackle Dondre Haynes and light him up. And I will use quotes because that's a quotable there. I'm gonna go get.
He is giggling behind the microphone.
Listen, I'm gonna have Cole Gardella get the stiff arm that Dondre did on the dude, a poor dude this year that was in his 20s. And I'm not going to say that I'll take it away from you, Chris, but I'm just going to just show you the disclaimer on that product you were about to buy. But anyway, what are your words on the heist wide receiver and big playmaker out of Ohio, Amatrice Hall, Chris?
mean, watching him play, he's a decent wide receiver. I would like to see a little bit more out of him as far as his route running is concerned. It seems like there's a few routes that he has ran that have been on point, but then there's more than one route that he runs that's not. I would like to see a little bit more of them. So I'm going to take a little bit more time this offseason and I'm going to watch him. I want to see what he does. There's Corey, you may or may not know, but there's a lot of telltales that a wide receiver will give when they're running their routes, whether they're going to be an in cut or an out cut route, just by the way they lean. And a lot of corners can pick up on that. And the one thing that I have noticed with his route running is that he does tend to lean a little bit. And if corners want to play that a little bit more, they can take him. So I want to watch him just a little bit more, and I want to see if that's something that he's doing on the regular as a tell, or if it's just something that he does once in a while. So I will give him the just due right now, and I'll say he has been on the scale from 1 to 10. I will give him an 8 as far as his receiving skills are concerned. But I think that I want to watch a little bit more, and I want to see what he's doing, because to me, one of the biggest things that a cornerback that a wide receiver can do to a corner is show him things that he is not used to seeing. Show him things that you are going to do differently within your game and understand what you're doing as your tells. But with some of these wide receivers that we're talking about, some of their tells are very obvious, and I'm surprised that the cornerbacks don't pick up on it.
Well, listen, if you're a corner in this league looking for some inside information, 1-800-NARC-CHRIS. That's 1-800-NARC-CHRIS, and he will tell you
Narc?
these tells.
Why gotta be a narc, dude? What's up with that?
No, I was trying to make a kind of like a running joke that that they call us narcs as players against media guys, and by they I mean me. No, I mean by us I mean me. They still call me a narc. But anyway, if you're looking for tells, maybe Chris knows them. That'll be interesting. Listen, maybe hey, look, we're not saying what you should offer, but if you offer Chris something and it meets his criteria, maybe you could be the winner of wide receiver tells across the league. I think Amateur Hall at number 5. He's one of those guys that you would want on a team in a passing offense. And when you look at the stats that Cole put out there, approximately like 90-ish, 95-ish yards per game in the games that we have stats on him. He's scoring a touchdown per game. It doesn't matter how he does it. I've seen him do it a lot of different ways. I like the way and the chemistry that he built with his quarterback. It's interesting with the chaos now dissolved, what that race for the best team in the division is going to be like in Ohio next year. And one of the guys in the division to watch is on the team that would be the inherent successor if you go based on the standings as they stood last year. The Heist, a good season at 7-2. That's nothing to sneeze at. I don't care what division you're in. Ask Jordan Davidson, who's been in multiple divisions, even in one off season. But Amateur Hall, number 5 on our list. That brings us, guys, to number 4. And it's interesting that Jordan Davidson, he mentioned Quani Morgan. But maybe I'll go with Cole again because he's doing such a great job on this pod. And thanks for being savage to me earlier. I deserved it.
Always.
Number 4. Cole, who is the number 4 wide receiver on the other side of the ball? Top 7 wide receiver list of 2024.
Well, like you mentioned, he's on the Animals, but he is not Quani Morgan. He is Manny Diaz.
Not the football coach.
Not the football coach.
Manny Diaz, number 2. And you know what? One of the interesting things about watching the Animals this year in the games of the week that they played BIC and everybody's favorite rookie quarterback, Tender, was missing. You could see the frustration on Manny Diaz's face when he was dealing with the both quarterbacks of Bebo and Chris at the real Chris on Instagram, who got injured, unfortunately, on the third play of that game. Hope he's doing better. He fumbled twice, too. It was bad. But it's interesting that we can put those two tapes next to each other. And when you give Manny Diaz a chance, he put up crazy numbers because I saw how frustrated he was in that game, literally caught in 4K saying, come on, this sucks, right? Because he wasn't getting the ball. Cole, in games that he was playing with David Tender, what were his stats like on the year?
Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, but Manny Diaz in 4 games had only 2 yards away from identical stats as Amatrice Hall in 5 games. He had 21 catches for 495 yards, which is a 23.6 average, only 2 less than Amatrice Hall. Also 6 touchdowns, which is, again, a 28.6 touchdown percentage. And I know you were talking about the one game where David Tender missed against the BIC, where the Animals got blown out by the BIC. They had to have, whoever at quarterback that game. It wasn't great. But
no, it was not.
If you can believe it, the only person who had any catches or yards in that game for the Animals was Manny Diaz.
And how many did he have in that game? Because then we could subtract it, and then it's only like 3 games.
In that game, he had 4 catches for 45 yards. Conversely, when he played the BIC in the playoffs, in what is now the highest scoring game of all time, with, I believe, a combined 146 points, he had 6 catches for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Not too shabby. So Manny Diaz, number 2, but number 4 in our list. Chris, have you gotten a read on Manny Diaz from the Animals?
Yeah, Manny is. I think that he is one of those guys that is up and coming. I know that he's been playing, but I think that he is one of those guys that his quarterback looks to. And we talked about it earlier and said that Jaden Webb was Fox's security blanket, and I think the same could be said about Diaz. I think that he is one of those guys that just knows how to get open, and when he's open, or even if he's not open, he's getting the ball. Ball's coming his way, and I think that when you have a playmaker like him, he is going to be there for his quarterback at all times. I like what he's doing. I think that he is one of those guys that you can build a team around. I would like to see them get a number 2 wide receiver for him, because I think that'll pull some of the coverage there, pull some of the coverage away from him and allow him to open up the field a little bit more. But I do like what he's doing.
Well, and everybody's been saying Quanny Morgan, and he was involved a decent amount in the pass game. He just, to me, the amount of times that he lined up specifically at wide receiver, it was, you're right, it's number 5. He lines up at like a slot coming out of the backfield, when normally he would be back there running the ball. Yeah, 80 to 68 in a football game is crazy when it's not arena. It's 100-yard field at that point.
I just say this, just go back to the game against the U where he started on the far side and then just ran a simple go, and he was wide open, and Innocence kind of tapped the ball to himself when he scored against the U.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what you need to know about Manny Diaz on just how he can go get the ball and has a nose for the end zone.
I mean, there's certain aspects in the game that you can't teach, right? And one of the things that I find very difficult to teach any wide receiver if they don't come into the game with it, and that is the ability to find the football in the air. And Corey, you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that, because
tracking, the way Cole described it as tracking,
one of the hardest things to do as a wide receiver. And the thing about it is, when you start to look back, you start to slow down. Period. I don't care what wide receiver you are. It's just a natural thing within the body that when you turn around, you naturally start to slow down. So the ability for some of these wide receivers to put their head down, keep running at full speed, and turn because they know where the ball is something you cannot teach. I don't care who you are. It's something that is just a natural piece of being a wide receiver. And some of these guys that we're talking about tonight are have that capability. And so when you don't know what it is to be a wide receiver, when you don't understand the fact of when the ball's in the air, turning your head a certain way so that way you can keep your speed moving forward, or in some of the plays that we're talking about, running downfield. Now, these guys wear mouthpieces. The thing that I teach all my wide receivers, bite down. What does that do? It stops your eyes from jiggling when you're looking back for the ball as you're looking up. Most guys don't understand that. It's not something that a lot of coaches teach, but it's something that you need to know, because one of the things that you have to do tracking the ball in the air on a deep pass is making sure that your eyes are not going up and down, because it makes it very hard for you to judge the ball. So Manny Diaz, to me, is one of those players. He has a knack for finding the ball in the air. He has a knack for going up and getting the ball. I like his game.
Yeah, and with the ball within sight, rare advice to bite down from Chris Vera. And we're talking about
Dude, you had to put it that way, didn't you? Bite down. Thanks. What are you, tossing a salad?
no. I made the innuendo joke, but it had nothing to do with that. I mean, Scott McCorkle would have made that reference.
Right? Well, he would have thrown in a butt-naked booty scoot, too.
He
Okay,
always-
13
he's
minutes
always
and
ready.
3 guys to go, so let's get to it. Remember.
Oh, hey, now don't be rushing us. We like Manny Diaz, and we're starting to get to the guys now. It's interesting. You talk about tracking. To me, that's the difference. What we talked about busts earlier, right? That would be one of the things that we mentioned. Is tracking separates the guys like, I don't know, 6'5", 4.2 speed from Georgia Tech and can't catch the ball, and 6'5", 4.2 speed from Georgia Tech, Megatron, right? Like the Calvin Johnsons of the world, Megatrons, versus the Stephen Hills, the one guy that got drafted by the Jets. And if you don't know his name, it's because he wasn't good. And that's the
I hate to say
difference.
it,
is the
Corey,
tracking.
but the difference between the two is Calvin Johnson was able to make himself small to make his breaks, and the
Yeah, Stephen
other
Hill was a track
guys-
guy. Yeah. Stephen Hill
yeah,
not
he was a
good-
track guy. He didn't understand
He couldn't track the ball, in my opinion. I don't know.
Well, no, he didn't understand the nuances of running routes. So
True.
when you have a track guy that's just flat out speed, that's way different than being able to keep your weight over your toes and not get too far outside of your cleats, so that way you're not stumbling in your breaks. And I saw him stumble a lot.
Number three. Now, you may or may not have footage of this upcoming gentleman, Dub. But I think it's only appropriate that
We
The
do have a
voice.
picture.
wait for it, the voice of the A7FL Nevada introduce our number three wide receiver of the 2024 season.
Well, really, truthfully, you're almost run out of superlatives to say when you're mentioning this man, because the bigger the game, the bigger he plays, the more he just seems to make plays. And when you need a playmate, it just seems like he is always Johnny on the spot, whether it's to catch a touchdown in the championship game or if it's to seal the deal to get an interception. There is only
Wait,
one.
and to also throw a block. Also throw a
And
block.
throw a block, but there's only one.
Also get a traffic citation.
But there's only one. Eric Shuford Jr., better known to all as Munchie.
Munchie.
Listen, the picture says it all.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just
You got to love the Black Widow superhero pose. Honestly, it's like a shout out to Yelena Belova in the new Hawkeye series or the Black Widow
Thunderbolts
movie.
and upcoming Thunderbolts.
And upcoming Thunderbolts. Let's be clear.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah, but I mean, the man knows how to run routes. The man knows how to throw the football. The man knows how to run. The man knows how to block. I mean, anything that you can ever ask of a football player to do, that is Eric Shuford Jr. Of course, he always says the moniker, "We're just better," and
Yeah.
as he always says,
He's
when
been
money's
proven
on-
right.
when money's
And
on
Cole,
the line,
Cole, what's
that's
his
just where
stats?
we shine.
I don't think he has them.
So I have his stats. So in, I believe this is 8 recorded games in 2024.
You have
He
it.
has. Well, he played 10, and 2 of them are not on the stat sheet, and a couple of them, I don't know. But so in 8 games, 21 catches, 308 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So, and I feel like a lot of that is with how when the the Insomniacs get up, they don't really pass it as much. They kind of just hand it off to RTC and then eventually get a mercy roll in the third quarter. So I think this is a very good example of stats not telling the whole story as much as obviously I would like to say they do. But I could not tell you how many times I've watched an Insomniacs game and I see it's third down or it's fourth down, and I'm like, oh, they're going to throw it to Munchie, and he'll get the first down. He might get it by, but and he won't get it by like an egregious amount. He knows exactly where he has to be on the field to get the first down, and he'll just sit there, and there's nothing that the corners can do about it. He just sits at right sticks, gets the first down every time it's third or fourth down. I'm like, they're going to throw it to Munchie, whether they like it or not, and I wouldn't be surprised if almost all of his catches were on third and fourth down, converting for a first down.
I will. The one thing that I love about Munchie's game is the fact that he's fearless. Munchie has no fear going against anybody. He doesn't care. That's one piece. The other piece that I love about a wide receiver that is something that we can try to teach as a coach, and that is being a hard-nosed player. And what I mean by that is blocking downfield for your running back, making sure to spring other wide receivers and understanding route concepts so that way you're not dragging other defenders into oncoming routes to open up for other players. And when you talk about those things, you talk about
Jordan,
that as a all-around player, which is Munchie. Munchie is the type of player that is one of those players that, and no vanilla wafer, Munchie is not a equal to Allen.
Jordan, shut up. Let him cook. He's cooking. Just let him cook.
Munchie is a different animal for more than one reason. The one other side that you'll very, very rarely see out of Munchie is drop passes. He does not drop very many passes at all. I would say that if we had a stat for that, I would say that out of all the receptions that he had, out of all the chances that he had to catch the ball, you're talking maybe 1% to 2% drop rate, and that's it. This man does not.
I've never seen it. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
I've only seen Munchie drop 2 passes in the time I've been watching, and that goes back.
Probably missed those. Yeah.
That goes back to Kryptonite when he played with them a couple seasons ago in the fall brawl. So when I talk about this man, I talk about him with admiration because he is what I was when I played, which was just get me the damn ball, don't throw it at my hands, throw it anyplace else, and I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to hit anything in sight to make sure that I'm springing whoever's running the ball. Period. Yeah. And I love that about him. And the thing about it is, he will take the brunt of other plays to make sure that other people are open for big plays. Munchie is a very unselfish player, and I love that about him.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I a lot of times with these lists do I throw it out there and I wait for you guys to kind of just, to do the shuffling. And when I was thinking about the stats on Munchie, and that's almost why I didn't want Cole to do them, it goes against what my whole premise of all of these lists have been, to be honest. And I'm just going a little bit behind the curtain. But when I'm making a wide receiver list, yeah, I'm going to keep off Logo Davis because he doesn't play the position as much, or Bagway because he doesn't play the position as much, or whatever. If we have a wide receiver list and Eric Schufert is not on the list, I feel like I did a disservice to the league because he is, if not the quintessential wide receiver that you would want, he's pretty close to it because one of the most impactful plays I've seen him make is a time he blocked 3 guys on a 4th down speed option play that sealed the win for his team. And you just showed the picture. We're talking him not going against the Gold's 3rd string corner at the end of the game in
Corey,
in garbage time.
I think there's one piece you're missing on that 3-person block that he had. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, after the game, Munchie's one of the ones that came over and said that it was actually supposed to be a pass play.
It was.
And Munchie said, no,
it was
we need a
supposed to go
run
to
play to
him.
get this first down, and it needs to go to
Yeah.
RTC.
He said give it to Wilkerson because it was supposed to be almost like a quick out to him because he scored
It's
on
the
that.
stop. No, it was the stop route that
And
they've been running the whole game, and it worked every time.
And he scored on that earlier in the first half of that championship game, and Scotty was going to go back to that, and Munchie said no. Give the bell cow the ball.
All right. We know we went over it. We went over that for almost 376 days by now.
But
I didn't miss it. I just was trying to shorten it.
But we don't talk enough about because we
can't talk enough about the things that he does for the game.
No, and when I say that, man, it's being an unselfish player because wide receivers are always known as being divas, and we know that. You're what? I'm not saying anything nobody knows. Wide receivers are known to be divas, but you're talking about a man that
read what 2-5 is saying.
Other wide receivers always want the ball. That man physically, he want to touch someone. No, did he?
Knox going 2000s R&B want to touch somebody.
Dude, Knox ain't. But the thing about it is, he's not lying.
You guys completely derailed. Listen. First of all, Munchie fucking hates my guts, and he's said as much to my face, and that's fair. I probably deserve it. But like I said, you guys are taking away my opportunity. I don't even care that he doesn't like me, and he probably doesn't. I don't deserve him to like me. But when I make a wide receiver list in the A7FL, even if his stats were like 11 catches for like 200 yards, motherfucker did donuts. Motherfucker did donuts after a touchdown in a big game.
He did a sideshow. Yes.
Gotta be on the list.
Number three.
No, that was number 3. We got to go move on to number 2.
Number 2.
Thank you.
And look, I'll say it.
I'll say
it. When I play against them,
go ahead.
When I play against them, there's literally footage of me going over to his coaching staff and saying, "No, get this man off the field." Because against him, fuck him. He's ruined so many. I was up 18-12 against BIC in the fourth quarter. This man scored 24 points on his own, unanswered. Listen, Cole, say Ashanti.
Number 2.
Ashanti worthy of BIC stats. It's fucking disgusting.
In 9 recorded games, he had.
These are quick screens.
Go ahead.
They're not all quick screens. 28 catches, 708 yards, an average of 25.3 yards per catch, 10 touchdowns, and 35.7% of his catches became touchdowns. He scored in 7 out of 9 recorded games, and I know he scored in another game as well, which is the Buzz game, which we don't have recorded stats for, but there is a clip of him catching a 60-yard pass for a touchdown. And he scored twice in 4 out of 9 recorded games. He accounted for a third of BIC's receiving yards. 31.1% of BIC's completions were to him, and 18.1% of BIC's attempted passes were caught by Worthy.
I thought he had an off year, guys. When I watched every single one of his games, I was thinking that, I don't think he put up that kind of stats. It's just so happened that he has over 700 yards in the recorded games, not the other 2 or 3 games that aren't recorded.
Look, man,
on 28 catches.
Go ahead, Dub. I'll say it after you.
Corey, do you think he became less of a focal point in the offense, even though he still put up the numbers that he put up this past season?
Look at the scores of BIC games. It's the same thing as the Insomniacs. So the same thing that you said about Munchie applies with Ashanti, except for there's still 28 times he caught the ball. Now, I don't want to make this Ashanti worthy Eric Schufert. It's not an equivalent take, because what Ashanti Worthy may not do that I've seen, not that he can't do it, but what he may not do is run the route that you know he's going to catch it on the sticks like Munchie does, as consistently as Munchie does it. Now, maybe when you have the ability to do the things that he's doing anyway, maybe you don't want to do that. But He only had 7 more catches, 7 more opportunities than Eric Schuford did last year to get yards and touchdowns. And when you put the numbers close to each other, Schuford was what, 21 catches for how many yards? 300-ish?
About,
400-ish?
about 400.
So he's 21 at 400.
About, yes.
And then if you gave him 7 more receptions and like 300 or 350 more yards, that's Ashanti Worthy's year. I mean,
But I mean, Corey,
I thought he had
I'm
an
going to say
off year.
this, and we
That's
can
what I'll
look at
say.
it many different ways. There are guys that are yak kings, yards after catch, and then there's guys that are just do all the dirty work and put up the numbers. And Ashanti, to me, is one of those guys that's a yak king, and it's not a knock. The guy can turn a
He turns
bubble screen into a
screens,
touchdown.
60 yards.
So, I mean, he's got that speed. When I start to look at the difference between, and you look, when I talk about wide receivers, I'm talking about from a situation that,
Yeah, I didn't want to. I wasn't trying to do the comparison. I was just putting it in
no, and
perspective.
no, and I understand that. But what I'm going to say was that, we can't compare Worthy's game with Munchie's game. It's a much different
Well, and
game that they play.
and the
Now-
stuff that we're mentioned about Munchie, the blocking and stuff. Not that Ashanti doesn't do it for his team because he does it. That's how Sterry can get yards on his run.
Yeah,
but it's a different thing. So
Yeah, it's a
just to
different
be
game.
clear, no, I'm just responding to people being like, "Oh, it's different." I'm not doing the comparison.
No, it's a when you're talking about them, and Knox said it, they're two totally different types of receivers, and I agree. The thing about it is when we start to look at the difference between what they are to their teams, Ashanti Worthy is a number 1 wide receiver. Munchie can be a number 1, he could be a number 2, he could be a number 3, depending on who they're playing and what their needs are. When I start to look at Worthy's game, Worthy uses his speed for a lot of his game because he is just flat out faster than most of the players he's playing against. Now, the thing about it is that I like about Ashanti Worthy is his hands. I think the man has great hands. He catches a lot of passes with his hands. He's not a body catcher, which is something that I think that you definitely need in this game because too many guys try to catch the ball with their body. They need to catch it with their hands. And Ashanti Worthy will go up and make that play with his hands. Now, the fact of the matter is, I think that one of the things that I would like to see a little bit more out of him is his capability to separate at the top of the route. And what I saw when they played against, and this is not a knock, so please don't freaking DM me for this shit. It's not a knock. What I saw in the championship game was I saw a player in that he hasn't faced, a type of player he hasn't faced in the cornerback that was covering him. And I think that
Danye
what
Lyons.
he saw was Gagne was just as fast as he was, and therefore he couldn't just run away from him. And I think that as Worthy
Couldn't get
is
separation.
going throughout his if he was to look at himself and say, okay, how can I get better? I think that what he needs to work on just a little bit is the crispness of his routes and how he runs them to be able to separate at the top of his route. Because I think what he does is a lot of his stuff is speed involved. And so cornerbacks understand, okay, well, he's showing me his speed. I can run with him. I'm okay with that. Start to show how you can dip and how you can give them other things that are taking them in the wrong direction, crossing their legs when they're running their routes to make make you a little bit more open at the top of your routes. So I love this kid's game, and I think he's going to get actually better as he starts to play. But I also think that it's one of those situations that if he was to critique himself at the end of the season, he can take a look at what he did against Gagne and he can grow from it.
I'll give a real hot take just real quick before we get to our number 1. Chris, you're not wrong with anything you're saying. But what I will say is in the moments in which he catches the ball, there's a lot of the routes where he gets the separation at the top of the route. He's just that fast that he's running a one move route at 25 yards. And then you miss the route on the film, right? So you're not incorrect with what you're saying, especially about the championship game. But let's be clear. Most of the times that he's catching the ball from his quarterback and the guy that we ranked as number 1, just to be clear, I can be critical of guys that I praise as well. He's so wide open not a big deal for his quarterback to find him the ball. I think the difference in the championship game was not that he wasn't able to get separation, because he wasn't. He's able to catch those one-on-one balls. It's that with the windows as tight as they were, the guy who was on the other end of what Ashanti Worthy needed to make those plays was unable to find enough space with the tighter coverage, because he was so effective and used to having Ashanti Worthy be completely wide open, because he earned it with those types of routes. And that's an indictment not on the wide receiver in those moments, in my opinion, because if you give Ashanti Worthy a chance, even against a guy like Danya Lyons, and you said it, Chris, he's a guy who could probably get that done. Which brings us already over time.
Number 1.
And Dub, since you got to take us out, give the man his props.
Well, 2 seasons ago, he led the league in touchdown receptions with 11. And we always talk about security blankets. Well, he definitely was the security blanket for Corey's guy. Of course, Mr. Jeremy
Not just
Gary
my
was
guy.
with it. Of course, he's your guy, and you're the president.
But let's be clear, the number 1 passing offense in the league, period. It's not because he's my guy. It's because he was the best receiver on the number 1 passing offense in the league. Unless Cole can correct me on that.
But nonetheless,
You're right.
When you need a play, you need a first down, when you need a touchdown, as I always say, when you find number 8, great things do happen, and that man is the one, the only, Darren Palmer of Sick With It.
Cole, you got DP stats?
I do. Not as high as I thought they were. Looks like in 7 recorded games, he had 15 receptions for 411 yards and 5 touchdowns. Sounds a little low, especially because I feel like I've seen him play, and he definitely did better than he had more than. Another thing that they were doing a lot, and according to his stats, it worked out insanely well, is they were giving him the jet sweep passes in the backfield.
Correct.
And he had, assuming all of his carries were those, which I don't think they would ever truly line him up at like a regular running back position. Assuming all the jet sweeps he took, or all of his carries were those reverse passes that were jet sweeps, so they count as a carry and not a reception, he took all those for touchdowns.
How
He
many
had
did he
5.
get?
He had
Nice.
5. So, again, this is missing a few games. It's missing and it's missing the games where Sick With It put up the most points, unfortunately.
There's when we're talking about DP for me, I like to talk about this kid for a couple of reasons. One of the things that really stands out to me is how humble he is, and I love that. He knows his worth, he knows what his capabilities are, but he's just a solid player. He is and he's an even better person. And when I watch this kid play, there's a couple of takes that I take from his game that are things that I see where he is, you've got what I would consider a superstar, just like Munch, and Worthy for that matter, that are willing and able blockers. Number one, they are, DP is willing to go out there and hit anybody. He doesn't care. He doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to be included in the play. Just because the pass isn't coming his way doesn't mean that he is taking a play off. He is running his routes from as hard as he does from play 1 at the beginning of the game to play 1,000. I don't care what it is at the end of the game. He is always doing the exact same things. You do not see Darren Palmer have his situations where, much like I said with Worthy and Munch, when you see him run a route, his routes are very crisp. His hands are probably some of the best hands in our league. I would put him up there with Munchie and Worthy for as far as drops. It doesn't happen. This kid is somebody that I respect a whole lot because of his personality, because of his abilities, and mainly because I love watching him run his routes, because he's one of those guys of what I was saying. He's got speed, But Darren has a way to get open at the top of his routes because of the way he ran them. He and I have talked about that, and I love the way he runs his routes. I love the way he sets up the corners. And the thing about it is, he is a chess player. This is one of the wide receivers that impressed me the most in our league and in our division, because he sets you up from one play to another. This is not one of those situations where Darren is showing you the exact same routes. Like if he's running a comeback route, he's going to run it differently every time you see him run it. When he runs a 7-yard post, he's going to show you a different release, a different position within that route that is going to make the cornerback basically second guess what his route truly is. And I love that about him. That's something that I love to teach my wide receivers, and that is something that he picks up on, and I love that fact about him. We've talked about it, like I said, and this is a guy that if I was going to point at and say, hey, Jaden Webb, if you want to learn a little bit more, you can learn something from DP. Hey,
anybody on this list, anybody in the league can learn something from Darren
DP.
Palmer.
And the thing about it is, I just love his game. I can't say enough about him.
Well, that's our number one guy. And listen, on a wide receiver night, let Chris cook, man. We went over, and I don't give a fuck. Do you guys? Tell us in the comments. So,
Man, I'll friggin' talk wide receivers all night, man. Let's go.
real quick recap. Number 7. Fuck it. Savion Cunningham, OTT. 6. Jaden Webb, Dem Falses. Number 5, Amatrice Hall, Covington Heist. Number 4, Manny Diaz, The Animals. Number 3, Munch. 2, Worthy. And number 1, Cole, let's be clear. You didn't take those Vegas stats, did you?
I did not take those Vegas
So
stats.
somebody fucked up over there, because those are not what Darren Palmer's stats were. I could almost guarantee it. Number 1 receiver in the A7FL in 2024, according to the other side of the ball, and myself. I'm here. You're not getting rid of me. It's Darren Palmer from Sick With It. Guys, I think this was a great list. I think this was a great show. And Dub, before you take us out with the Winter War stuff, next week is athletes. We're going to start trying to, I don't know what that's in reference to, but shout outs to Knox, who will likely be joining us next week, where we will talk athletes. We will talk guys that you can't put in a box. And I mean that figuratively and literally, because they don't make boxes usually that big. And I promise you, fans at home, we will get footage of what Dondre Haynes might be able to do to Chris Vera. Might not, according to our esteemed co-host. So, guys.
Am I missing something here? What
Bro,
he
you
can do to me?
I'm going to show you some highlights, and I'm just going to use that. I don't know. That's not passion. I care about Chris. I don't want him to write checks. That might, I don't know. Let's see.
I'm not going to write any checks. I'm good, man.
Well, I'm just saying. Look, listen. You said it. I think it'll be funny to. I think it'll be funny to show you what this motherfucker did to a grown ass man. This 20-year-old. So, Dub.
I'm not 20 years old, man. I'm 53. But
I know that's why. That's why I don't think you would light him up or whatever you said is all I'm saying. I just think it'll be funny.
I just said that I would light anybody up because I really don't care.
No,
how big
I
would
get
hit
that.
you. It don't matter to me. And I'm not a small guy. He might be, what'd you say, 6'7", 2 what?
Bro, you think Big Rob is big?
Mm-hmm.
Tune in next week. I'm gonna try to find the footage.
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I'm saying.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
When somebody opens up, the thing about it is that I learned a long time ago. When somebody opens up as a wide receiver, and what I mean by that is when you put your hands up to catch a pass, that's the best time to hit them. And what I'm saying is, I don't really care how big somebody is. I've hit guys much bigger than me when I played in high school and had the pads on. I really don't give a shit. That's the attitude that you got to take. If you are, and Dub, I agree with you. If you want to play soft and you want to say, "Oh, he's too big, I can't hit him," I don't care. I don't. I never have. So, I mean, a long time ago, a coach told me one of the best things you could do to a big running back is to grab him by the shoulder pads and roll with his shoulder pads. The one thing they didn't tell me was that they would land on you. That was the one piece that I didn't know. And when I did it the first time, it hurt like hell. So that's when I started to learn to go for their waist, because the other thing that I realized is if you grab a running back or any runner, when you hit them in the gut and grab them by the back of their legs and pick them up, they can't run. No matter how big they are, they can't run. So
He's right. He's right.
That's the biggest piece, and that's why I said
that's your best chance. At that point, that's your best chance against a guy like that.
I don't care how big you are. I'm going to hit you. And if I bounce off, I bounce off. So be it. But it doesn't mean I'm going to be like, oh, I can't hit him. He's too big.
That's right. We got a Jeremy Geary sighting. Throw up the comment.
Jeremy,
this
man.
is the closest we'll ever get him to actually joining the show, because I actually asked for him. He said, I'm too humble. That's right. Your guy's number one because you threw him the ball, and he definitely had better stats than we said. So, Chris, sounds like you're ready to play some football. Dub, do that little clip so that he knows where to sign up for something that's coming up.
Coming to you in January.
But you will be seeing me coach.
Coming up to you in January of 2025.
It was just a segue.
Is coming.
Is it?
Winter is coming.
And he can make something magical happen here. And there goes the ball. It's going. It's going. You're a fan.
Battles will be won.
Hold on now.
At the 30, and he
Who's going to take victory?
and that's what championship points matter.
It's time for war.
And if you want to participate in the Winter War coming up in January of 2025, that QR code that is on your screen right now, click it. It will take you to aceflnevada.com, and you can sign up and register and be a part of the Winter
Ticket
War
or ticket.
returning to Matter Academy in January of 2025. Brought to you by A7FL Nevada.
Knox, I'm coaching with Coach Wallace, just so you know. He's asked me to come out and be his wide receivers coach. I'm going to go ahead and do that.
That's how they get you, Chris. Pretty soon you'll be pretty close to that sideline. All you got to do is put on the cleats and the jersey.
Well,
So-
in
No,
this
you need to
case,
sign up.
Corey, in this case, Corey, I'm not coaching Coach Wallace's A7 team. I'm going to be helping him coach the Kings.
Ah, I see. Anyway, so winter is coming.
That it
Balls.
is.
And I think if you say it with a British accent, you have to say, I do not own the rights to this phrasing. But for my friends, Cole Gardella, the stats extraordinaire, Chris Vera, a man that never forgets, Dub Anthony Alvarez, also known as Charlie Batch. I'm
Dare I
Corey
say
Hammond.
who shot in my pants? Which one of you cowards shot in my pants?
Oh, you're doing a Monty Python reference? I was doing Game of Thrones.
No, dude, Game of Thrones. That's a Game of Thrones reference.
Who shat in my pants?
Off the record scale, ladies.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, when they were getting attacked at the what the hell do they call it?
Oh, at the end.
wall?
Yeah.
Redbeard is like, which one of you cowards shat in my pants?
Tormund Giantsbane, and
Yes.
yeah, in the Battle for the Wall episode 3 of season 8. I do remember that actually. I kind of I couldn't see anything going on in that episode. I'm a more of an early season
Yeah,
fan.
the darkness sucked. Anyway,
Darkness, everyone, darkness.
too dark.
I can't make that joke. You guys can only half make that joke. And Cole, don't you even think about
Can't
it.
make that
No.
joke. We're light skin.
You can only half make
We
that
are,
joke.
we are like, yeah,
Half.
half,
Only half.
50% of me can make that joke, but nonetheless, for Derek, for Corey, and a special thanks to our statistician emeritus, Cole Gardella. Appreciate you being on the show, Cole. The door is open anytime. And of course, for Chris Vera and for Knox hanging out with us in the comments, who might make his grand return next week as we talk about the top 7 athletes of 2024 in
Don't
the
miss this one.
ASFL. So you might want to get your popcorn for this one because this is going to be a whole lot of discussion going on. Nonetheless, take care of yourself and each other, and we'll see you next week on the other side of the ball. Take care of yourself, guys.
Hasta luego.